This is Nintendo's biggest flop of the modern era. But how did we get here? Coming off the height that was the Nintendo Wii, selling over 100 million systems worldwide, people were very excited to see what the next system was going to become. But when this system was announced through different cycles of poor marketing, misunderstanding from consumers, and overall confusion and a lack of support, the Wii U was pretty much set up and destined to fail. But today we're going to answer the question how Nintendo went from absolute peak to an absolute flop. To start us off, we have to dive into the Wii. So the Wii sold over 100 million consoles worldwide, and it was one of the most successful consoles ever made, ever put out. It was in everyone's home, it was in nursing homes, it was in kids' daycares, it was everywhere, and everyone could always pick up the Wii controller and play a game because of how intuitive and understanding it was. But the success of this console ended up hurting the Wii U in the long run, because by the time the Wii U came out, many of the hardcore gamers had moved on from Nintendo. They had decided that Nintendo was going to continue down this line of very gimmicky type systems, and a lot of people wanted out. Or they wanted to see the next system return more to the GameCube style, where it was more of in the power race, and it just made a little bit more sense for most gamers. People were sick of motion controls, things like that. They wanted games to be games and the gimmicks to not hinder those games, like many thought they did with the Wii. I don't personally believe it did too much, but I can also see where this perspective comes from, because if you're not a big motion control person, having every single mainline game be motion controlled is tough. It'd be like if the next console that came out was VR, and the next Mario game you had to play in VR, or Zelda for that matter. It just changes up the game so much that it can isolate core fans, and that's a lot of what the Wii did for the Wii U. The expectation for this system was also sky high because Nintendo had attracted a lot of new fans that hadn't previously played their other systems. So there was a lot of anticipation here, and unfortunately, the Wii U ended up fumbling it due to a huge part because of the marketing. The name itself, Wii U, confused a lot of buyers. There were a ton of Wii series games like Wii Fit, Wii Motion Plus, Wii Sports. All those kinds of titles of games and accessories made people think that this console was in fact just a tablet add-on to the Wii itself. So it was really confusing to a lot of people that there was even a new system being shown off whatsoever, especially because in this first unveiling of it, Nintendo mostly focused on the tablet and not the system itself. And then the other part of this is that casual gamers at this point have moved on to other avenues of gaming. The Wii came out in 2006. At that time, smartphones weren't really on the rise yet, and the evolution of casual gamers had not yet transitioned, to mobile games. But with the Wii U in the 2010s and 2012, when this system was initially shown off, we did see that. We could see that people had already moved on, and the casual gamer base that they had been trying to capitalize on was elsewhere in the market now. And by isolating those casual gamers and really going after that, and having not much focus on hardcore gamers and understanding what they want, there was really a lack of identity here, and it caused a lot of problems for them down the line. So the Wii U, in my opinion, kind of feels like the Disney remakes of classic Disney movies, right? Like, we have a good Pinocchio movie already, but why would we need this one? It doesn't make any sense. So we have the Wii already. It's great, and it's time to move on to your next theatrical project, Disney/Nintendo in this allegory. But they've gone right back at it, put a new coat of paint on it, upgraded some visuals, and confused the fuck out of some people. Now let's dive into the launch of this system. The launch of the Wii U was pitiful. The only main first-party releases were Nintendo Land, which we'll get into that one, and New Super Mario Bros. U. That's a long-ass title, and it was not a very exciting game. You see, we had gotten a lot of New Super Mario Bros. Games at this point that were just simply uninspired. The art style stayed the same. The platforming, while good, was growing stale, and there just weren't very many new ideas present here. Yes, we got a couple random new power-ups, things like that, but at the end of the day, there was nothing here that was so exciting as to sell a brand new console to people who were already unsure about it. Sure, a Mario game is a great selling point, but something as bland and corporate feeling as this one doesn't make a lot of sense as the main push for people to buy this new console. Nintendo Land, on the other hand, was a very cool get for the system. It showed off a lot of the capabilities of the gamepad while also showing how, backwards compatibility could work with your controllers. How you could use your past Wii remotes on this new system now and experience a lot of fun with other players. It is honestly a really fun co-op game, and I don't know how they could do it, but if they could ever make a Switch 2 sequel to this game, I would absolutely adore it because it is super fun and it's a good game, but it's niche. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have that wide appeal that something like Wii Sports does. You can't pick it up and immediately understand it. It takes a little bit of time to learn. It's kind of like, a Mario Kart. You're not going to immediately be good at it, but you can sort of get the hang of it after a while. It's just not as intuitive as something like Wii Sports. So that game is a great game, but it flew way under the radar because of the lack of mass appeal, and it was niche, you know what I'm saying? And so on top of a niche game and then another game that was just really bland and thrown out on the Wii U, people were uninterested. We got some interesting ones like Zombie U, which really took advantage of the gamepad and had this like survival horror type game, which was super cool and random and an interesting way for Nintendo to go in order to attempt, I'm assuming, to capitalize on a more broader audience. But Ubisoft developed it, and it just ended up flying under the radar yet again, because that's not why people go to Nintendo consoles. The gamepad itself was also just kind of underwhelming. I mean, you got it in your hands and it felt sort of like a toy, and a lot of games didn't even really end up utilizing it in a smart way for their title. I mean, take something like Star Fox Zero, that way overutilized the gamepad and just took away from the actual game and made things too gimmicky. There was a balance there for sure that something like Zombie U did strike a great balance with. Also, Mario Maker was awesome in it. Splatoon, another great one. And what's so interesting about the Wii U as a whole is the games that came out were so good and so quality for the most part, but also they were few and far between. It'd be like a YouTuber coming out with a banger video about once a year and then disappearing. You are starved for more content from them. You want something else, right? Or at least you have other YouTubers to fill in those gaps, but what you didn't have on the Wii U was other companies to fill in those gaps. Third-party companies were absolutely non-existent on this console, so it didn't really pull any new players in consistently. And there was really just no killer game at this point that could entice people enough to put aside how gimmicky it is and how childlike the marketing is and dive into the system. I mean, not to go back to the marketing, but look at this trailer. Why would someone my age at that time buy it? Why would someone other than a kid buy it? And a kid doesn't want to play a game other kids are excited about. I'm going to tell you the truth. Kids look up to grown-ups, they look up to adults, they want to play games that the big kids are playing, at least, you know what I'm saying? So this is a weird angle to go for marketing. Sure, it's fun, it's kiddie, but this is not the audience you need to capitalize on, Nintendo. I mean, honestly, just look at the Switch marketing and how much they switched things up and how much more successful it was, and you can totally see the shift in mentality for Nintendo and understanding that it doesn't even look cool in the marketing. We need to make it look fucking cool. That's why we had rooftop parties. So the system wasn't successful at launch, but could it turn around at any point? No. The momentum of this system never really picked up because of how many game droughts there were. Like I said, there were good titles released for the system, Pikmin 3 came out, an amazing game. And that same year, we got 3D World, another great game, and those two games are awesome, but those are the two games of the year. Again, drawing parallels to the Nintendo Switch, it feels like they learned a lot because if you look at the library of the Switch itself, you can see how much improvement there has been. Every single month, or at least 2 months, we are getting some sort of decently exciting first-party game. And here, again, with the lack of third parties, 2 very quality and exciting Nintendo games was not enough for the momentum to start snowballing and for more people to want to get the system. Even in 2014, we got Mario Kart, we got Smash Bros, we got some huge heavy hitters, but again, it's not enough. That combined with a remake here or a remake there, whatever. People were uninterested. The gimmick itself did not sell the system, and the games themselves were so few and far between that people were unhappy. Even owners of the Wii U at that time were just not very happy with their purchase because they'd break it out like twice a year to get through whatever exciting game, and then it was away at the next turn. It sucked. And when those games did come out, they undersold, Games like Splatoon were awesome. Mario Maker, really, really awesome. But those games only had the capacity to sell at most like 10 million because of the install base of the Wii U itself being absolutely tiny. There was just very little return on a lot of these games because no matter how good of a game it was, there was not enough install base on the Wii U itself to make people excited, to make the game something that was talked about necessarily. We did have two main games that really transcended the conversation of the Wii U, that being Splatoon, which was a huge departure for Nintendo and was a really cool experiment in the third-person shooter style, and people just honestly completely did not expect this from Nintendo, so to see something of this level of creativity was awesome, and this was big because of streamers at the time. And then similarly with Mario Maker, it capitalized so perfectly on the aspects of the Wii U gamepad, and then it ended up being very successful because so many content creators got into it and people really just started talking about that game again. But at the same time, it's like this game, both of them could have been monumentally more successful had the install base of the system itself been bigger. And it could have been bigger if after they released those games, they continued with the heavy hitters, but it just always slowed down to a goddamn halt. And no matter how cool a game like Splatoon or Mario Maker was looking, there weren't really people buying the system for these games themselves. People already invested in it, sure, they were going out and getting these games because they were starved for games, but people unsure or on the fence were not convinced by these types of games. You know what I'm saying? It's like, where were the heavy hitters, which we did get, but few and far between again. It was never enough to build that momentum, like I've said. And then Nintendo basically in 2015 soft launched the funeral of the Wii U. They announced the Nintendo NX, the successor to this system, and we weren't given very much information on it at this point, but it was pretty clear that their focus had shifted from the Wii U and they were ready to move on. And then the sales of that year slowed to a goddamn crawl. And then with the showcase of the Switch in that same year, people just completely lost interest in the idea of what the Wii U had to offer. So the last game on the system was the Zelda game that was promised to be there, Zelda Wii U, which eventually got renamed to Breath of the Wild and ended up coming out as a cross-gen release on both consoles, being the very last game that the Wii U ever touched. It's crazy because looking back at many of the games that came out for that system, they were really freaking great games, but they were just on a system that was doomed to fail, whether it be the poor marketing, the confusion of consumers, the lack of any upward mobility, you know what I mean? Like after you put out a really good game, there was nothing on the docket for a while. So just the inconsistency there, on top of people just overall losing interest and Nintendo moving on to the next system, the Wii U from the start was pretty much doomed to fail, and they never really helped themselves get out of it. But what they did do was release a ton of quality games that ended up being ported to the Nintendo Switch and going on to have huge numbers of success, leading to more interest in those respective series, like Pikmin 3 Deluxe selling well, leading to Pikmin 4, and Pikmin 1 and 2 coming to the system. Xenoblade Chronicles X finally came to the Nintendo Switch, a game that people were excited to finally see off of the Wii U, because on that system, it just felt like those games were doomed from the start. So giving them a fresh start, if you will, on the Switch was insane. I mean, you look at the best-selling Switch game of all time, sitting at well over 60 million units, it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and that is a Wii U game. Mario Kart 8 is from the Wii U, 2014, you know what I'm saying? They remastered it, put it on the Switch, sold exponentially more copies, and that combined with the Wii U sales numbers, which were fairly impressive for it being a Wii U game, sitting around almost 9 million copies sold. Overall, that puts that game at around 75 million copies sold, which is unfathomable. And what we saw was that the gamepad really laid the foundation for what this Switch was going to become. The idea of the Wii U, somebody could be watching something on your TV and you could be sitting there in the same room playing a game on your gamepad if you would want that, was able to translate really well into the actual mechanic of the Nintendo Switch. It really feels in a lot of ways like a prototype for what Nintendo ended up doing in the future. We even saw how their branding elevated so much in the transition from the Wii U to the Switch and how much they changed about their philosophy of things. The Switch pretty much ended up being every single thing the Wii U wanted to be. And at the end of the day, the Wii U ended up flopping so hard that it turned around and helped the Switch become the absolute success and banger that it ended up being. But let me know what you think about this all down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out this one. It's a banger, it's a vibe, it's a good time. I will see you over there. I'm overwhelmed with school and work currently. I'm trying to get through it, but we are almost there. I will see you in this one. Goodbye.